What's up, guys? It is the Scarlet Duelist back again with yet another deck profile that I am confident calling pretty good. This is my Odd Eyes Endymion deck profile. I really love the deck, guys. It's got an incredibly high ceiling. It's very competitively viable, but it's also good for the casual audience too. I think what's cool is you can take what I have here and make it as casual or competitive as you want. And I'll talk a little bit about that, mostly on the extra deck. But yeah, it's super fun. And if you're looking to start with pendulums, maybe you've been interested in them, I think this is a really great starting point. It's still my favorite to this day, and you can make it a little more complex once you get maybe pure odd eyes down and so on. So look into it. It's really fun. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the deck before we get started. That way you don't invest too much of your time and find yourself disappointed if this isn't the deck for you. So let's actually start with the cons. Get ready, people. So unfortunately, this is a pendulum deck, which means it's still, no matter what, you can't get away from it. It's still a little bit solitary, which means that you're going to be playing through a lot of combos to reach your win condition. So if you're not one that enjoys doing that, if you don't like solving that puzzle of creating a board or solving that puzzle of getting around your opponent's board with a lot of plays, this deck is not for you. Next, you do have to run multiple engines, which means more cards. This is a 50 card deck due to that reason, which means you put yourself in a little bit more danger of either bricking or just not seeing your engine pieces to get your plays rolling. Now, it doesn't happen often due to the fact that this deck can search almost everything you want, but that still happens when you have to run more cards. So it's weird because running more cards helps you not see your garnets that you're running, but it also does do a weird thing to your consistency of cards you want to see. So it's just kind of a trade-off. You got to play with it a little bit, and that's just kind of how it is. Now let's talk about the pros. Like I said, even though it is a little bit solitary, what's fun about it is very rewarding to play if you do figure out that puzzle of, what plays should I make? What should I get out here? What should I search for? And so on. It's really fun and really rewarding to win with. It also, because of that, has multiple play lines, which I think is awesome. I love the fact that I never play the same duel twice. Because nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of decks really try to accomplish the same mission every single duel. And really what Yu-Gi-Oh is optimizing a deck to do that one thing. What's cool about Odd Eyes, I guess comboed with Endymion, is there are multiple play multiple play lines that you can get through that can reach a win condition, which is really nice. And I guess to just put the cherry on top, it's got a really high ceiling. You can do a whole lot to your opponent or even just OTK out of the blue with this deck. It's awesome. But what I really love about Odd Eyes in terms of pendulums is it's a nice happy medium between the crazy combo decks that run 75 cards and make 87 negates and control decks that just play their game really well and outlast their opponent. So yeah, I just really love playing it, and I hope you do too. Let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. We've got our lovely one of here, Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Such a beautiful looking card. I love the artwork, but it's not necessary to play more than one. You have this in there as a name to search if you've already seen all of your other ones, and it's not a bad scale either, but it's so searchable in the deck that you don't need to run multiples. Now, the card that you really always hope to open on is Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. What this does is allows you to summon straight from the deck, and normally we go for our Dissolver to allow for a fusion summon off of this card. Really great card, definitely want to see it, and again, very searchable. Next we've got Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. This is kind of your OTK maker. Again, very searchable as an Odd Eyes card. But what this does is allows you to push for more damage, and it allows you to increase attack, whichever one you do, whether it's in the pendulum zone or the monster zone. Really good card, but not necessary to run more than one. Next, we've got 2 Odd Eyes Persona. 3 is a little clunky, but 2 is great because it's also very searchable, and you can summon it from the deck using Arc Pendulum, or even using Hieratic Spheres. And what's really great about this, coming up in Master Rule 5, is it negates monsters that were summoned from the extra deck, which is going to be happening a lot more as we move further into Master Rule 5. So this is just another push for another negate right from the deck. You don't have to do anything super crazy to get to it, and it helps you not rely as much on extra deck negates. So really, really great card, and it's also a nice low scale that helps you get out some of your lower cards that you're going to use to link off. So really great card. Next, we've got 1 Performapal Odd Eyes Dissolver and 1 perform a PAL Odd Eyes Synchron. Really, all you need to know is this one's for fusion summoning, this one is for synchro summoning. Their other effects are different intricate ways to get that done, but that's what they're for. And again, very searchable off of Arc Pendulum or even Sky Iris and things like that, so you can get to them very easily. What's great about Odd Eyes is they search themselves and have their own search cards, so the Electromite hit back in the day didn't really hurt that much. It sucks, don't get me wrong, but they can still play, which is really nice. Next, we've got 3, Magical Abductor. This one's controversial. I'm still debating whether or not I like it, but so far it's been good. The only downside is you got to be sure you want this card in the Pendulum Zone, so that means you're not going to be probably getting the Arc Pendulum pop-off unless you already did it, then played Magical Abductor and had a ton of other combos to still get its effect off, but I doubt it. So this is where you have to make the decision, but that's why we run more cards. That way we have more play lines. And Magical Abductor is really rewarding if you can get it to go off, but the best way to play it is at 3. If you're not going to play it at 3, don't play it at all, because it'll just be a brick at that point. Next, we've got our Time Gazer, which is just a garnet to get out from our Chronograph. Chronograph is really nice in Odd Eyes because if you have this card in hand, maybe you've already Pendulum summoned and you had to, you can still use your Gate 0, which you'll see in a moment, to pop a card, and then that might trigger your Arc Pendulum to special summon from deck, then Chronograph will trigger in your hand, bringing out more cards, and it's as if you Pendulum summoned anyway, so it's a great way to get around a bricky hand in multiple areas. So it's great at 3, even if you're not going to use it to bring out your Time Gazer, it's still useful in hand in Odd Eyes specifically, which is really nice. Next, we've got 2, Dark Worm. You don't need 3 because we're not going for Guard Dragon plays. This is just there to develop some advantage using either Dragon Ravine or Dragon Shrine, or even normal summoning it to get to this guy here. I don't mean to the number, I mean to get to this. Because it searches out Gate 0. Gate 0 is really great in Odd Eyes because if you Pendulum summon this guy out, what this does is it pops a card in your Pendulum Zone, brings out a Fusion, Synchro, or XYZ extra deck monster, which you can just use as link material or as fusion material. And then it places itself back in the Pendulum Zone. What that might do, if you have an Odd Eyes card there, is trigger off your Arc Pendulum to special summon from deck, and what you did was just gained 2 cards for nothing, and you got another card in your Pendulum Scale ready to Pendulum Summon with. So it's fantastic to use this card. I might even consider taking Dark Worm to 1 and then putting Gate 0 at 3, because it's fantastic in Odd Eyes. It's a really good play starter. It kind of acts as a pseudo Electromite, really. Next, we've got 2, Jackal King. I prefer to search this using Servant of Endymion, not Master Cerberus. So I think that's what that one's called. The level 8 guy, I don't remember if I said his name right. I have it, and testing it, honestly, on Odd Eyes became a brick because it's level 8. So if you don't see it at the right time, it's just not good. And when you're running a 50-card deck, the chances of opening on a 1-of are very slim. And playing 3 is actually even worse because, again, it's level 8. So if you just keep seeing Jackal King, or not Jackal King, if you just keep seeing Master Cerberus, your plays are kind of non-existent. So I just took it out altogether. It just wasn't worth it when you can bring out Jackal King either via Pendulum Summon or using Servant of Endymion. Next, we've got Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic, aka Doctor Strange. Then we've got Reflection of Endymion and Magister of Endymion. Each of them serve their own purpose and create targets for Spell Power Mastery. That way you have something to search if you open on Servant and Spell Power Mastery. So that's really the only reason that I'm playing kind of one of each. I don't feel like it's necessary in this build to play this guy at more than 1. If it was pure Endymion with Pendulum Magicians, absolutely. But in the Odd Eyes build, you only need 1 of each. These guys are great because they're level 7s and they also do something. Obviously, this guy is there for spell and trap negates, and then this one is nice for bounces if you're going second. So Reflection's a really underrated card. Then, of course, we've got the Servant, which makes that all possible, and it's searchable by Spell Power Mastery. Excuse me. So all of these synergize really well and allow you to create a lot of your really valuable links. but they also still synergize well with the Odd Eyes cards, which is really nice. Next, we've got one more Garnet in the deck, a Morphage Sloth, which is there for when we use Hieratic Seal, just to further stun our opponent and give them something that they have to deal with during their own turn, which might make them exhaust resources and allow us to come back next turn and push for game. So chances are this won't stay on the field too long, but what's really great is you can Pendulum Summon it right back, which is really great. And our last monster will be Spellbook Blue Boy, which is just Magician of Prophecy, but everybody calls him Blue Boy for some... Oh, because he's blue! Why did I say for some reason? I know why. That's right there in front of me. I'm a silly goose. This is kind of iffy, but I'm running the Spellbook package. I'm going to kind of cheat this here and show you that I have two of those. So I'm running these four because they're for Crowley, just to push for further advantage and further plays. That's, again, with 50 cards, it helps to not run into these as much. But if you do, it's not the end of the world. It just means you don't have to make Crowley. You can just go into other Link monsters. So again, not the end of the world. It's just one of those things where, again, you're going to have to be the judge when you see your hand. What play lines am I going to go through? But that's pendulums for you. They run a lot of engines. So this is one of them that just helps with consistency and getting more plays off. Even though it's kind of risky, I would still recommend testing it. Even if you want to try different ratios, I would definitely play some form of this strategy. So far, this has really worked for me. Second, the best search spell in the game. I'm quoting Team DBZ Biscuit on that one. I can't even talk. I almost said Spell Flame Strike, and that is incorrect. Spiral Flame Strike. So this searches any one of your level 7 Odd Eyes monsters right to your hand, or if you already control an Odd Eyes card, you get to pop something, which is amazing, because you can either pop off your Arc Pendulum if you really want to, or just start picking apart your opponent's board if you're stuck going second. So really versatile card, and what's awesome is it's not once per turn, so you can just keep activating these if you open on a hand of them. Why not? It's awesome. Next, we've got 3 Spell Power Mastery to get to those Endymion cards. Unfortunately, this is once per turn, but it's very valuable because it allows you to place some spell counters on your... Maybe you opened on Servant and this, so you can search another Endymion card and then place those spell counters and get that summon off of Servant a lot faster. Next, we've got Sky Iris, which is also a banging card. We essentially have 4 copies of it because it's a really great card and it helps us get to our Odd Eyes cards very quickly. And it also allows for that pop-off effect so that we can use our Arc Pendulum to special summon from the deck. So awesome, awesome card. Very much a must-play. Play it at 3 with the Terraforming. You want to see this card. Yes, you run the risk of opening more than one when you play 3 ofs, and I know hard ones per turn kind of suck, but that's why we're playing a 50 card deck, to kind of minimize the chances of seeing multiples, but still seeing valuable combo pieces. Next, we've got 1 Summoner's Art and 1 Duelist Alliance. There's already enough search cards in the deck, and you're going to see what's coming next. You don't need to run these at more than 1. They help you get to your Arc Pendulum a little bit faster because it is one of your biggest play starters in the deck, so you really want to see that. But you've got multiple ways to run into it. Chances are you're going to get to it. Next, we've got 3 Allure. You've got enough dark monsters in this deck to run 3 Allure, and it's awesome because you just keep getting advantage, and it helps with spell counters. So really great card. It's basically Pot of Greed in this deck. No, you don't plus off of it like Thunder Dragons tend to, but it's still an amazing draw power card. I would recommend 3 of these over Pot of Desires any day because Allure allows you to draw, then decide what you're going to banish rather than hope to God you didn't banish everything you wanted. Next, for our last 2, before we get into the spice, we've got Dragon Shrine and Dragon Ravine. So both of these I picked over Foolish Burial because 1, this is searchable by Romulus, which we can easily make. And 2, both of them allow you to in some way discard another card, which is really helpful when you make Draco Masters of the Tenyi, because you can get rid of maybe an extra Arc Pendulum, which is a normal monster, and it allows you to make that Tenyi card before you Pendulum Summon, so you control no other effect monsters and then get some pops off if you're going second. So it's just really useful to be able to do that. Because I believe he applies that effect to non-effect monsters in your graveyard as well as on the field, which is really nice. So even if you have both, you know, you get those pops, which is really, really cool. Finally, for the spice, we've got Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon and Odd Eyes Advent. Both of these are searchable in some way or another by all the Odd Eyes search cards. And what's really awesome about getting this card out on the field, well, is that it bounces all spells and traps your opponent controls to the hand, and they cannot respond to that effect's activation. So it's just basically a spell speed 4, bounce all their spells and traps, which is an incredible effect. Next, I believe it says, yeah, they have to pay 500 life points to activate any card effects. So on top of that, you're burning them. They have to get rid of this card. It's really, really good, but so searchable that you don't need it at more than a 1 of, and it's a fun tech, to be honest. Is it probably the most competitive choice? Maybe not, but I've seen it work after testing, and I think it's worth running because at the end of the day, you could just use it as fodder to discard or whatever if you're not going to use it going first. And then the Odd Eyes Advent is also searchable. So what's really cool, though, is if you don't want to search this to your hand, you can get it sent to the graveyard. You can ritual summon from your hand or graveyard using this ritual spell. So this card's very searchable using Sky Iris and so on. So you add it to your hand, and then if Odd Eyes Gravity is even in the graveyard, you can ritual summon it from the graveyard. So as long as it's just there, you're good to go. And then if you have your Odd Eyes Absolute on the field, you can just keep bringing it back and so on. So it's very good. Highly recommend. And Arc Pendulum can bring it back as well. So definitely keep that in mind, guys. It's something that could keep recurring. It's very easy to get out. On the surface, I know it seems like those are 2 1-ofs. How are you going to get that out? But like the fact that this summons from the graveyard and the fact that this bounces all spells and traps without your opponent being able to respond, I think make it worth doing that, especially since this deck can play the long game rather than vomit all of your cards onto the field and then hope you win. You want to have some backup plays that kind of, you know, turn the tables and change the game state to be in your favor. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, let's get into the extra deck. Yes, unfortunately, as I said, doing a lot of solitaire with any pendulum deck, and you're still trying to get the most advantage on the field as possible. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. You've still got some negate extra effect monsters, but it's not completely that. But we'll talk about it. So combo pieces. If you're going spellcasters, you've got Crowley and Daybreaker. You know, sometimes Crowley isn't possible or the most viable option, especially if you open on all your spellbook cards. So you don't want to make this. You can make Daybreaker, which helps with spell counters and getting out your Jackal Kings and so on. And he helps pop cards by getting rid of spell counters as well. So that's really nice. Next, we've got Romulus for when you open on more dragons. Then he searches the Dragon Ravine and can actually get that Gravity Dragon play going pretty easily. But he can also get other things into the graveyard that help with that Draco play. So that's really nice. But also, too, you can get Dark Worm into the graveyard with it if you want to just have a backup play for later, something to bring out in case your board is wiped or so on. But otherwise, it's just a nice link, too. Next, we've got Hieratic Seal. This is a great way to end if maybe you got to a point where you're like, all right, I'm going to have to stop making plays. You're kind of just resting on some generic Odd Eyes cards. Make Hieratic Seal, get a bounce, bring out your Amorphage to stun, come back in next turn really strong. So that's when I make Hieratic Seal. It's not really my end-all be-all, but it's a great card and a fantastic interruption. Next, we've got Draco Masters of the Tenyi. This one's, I don't know, it's a really great generic Link 3, and it's got that really cool conditional effect about non-effect monsters, so I really think it synergizes well with Odd Eyes due to the fact that you have Arc Pendulum. You can very easily make this and start popping cards and start linking back up into things, which is really awesome. So definitely play this card in Odd Eyes specifically. It's a very good card. Then we've got Borreload. This is my proxy. Oh, and I forgot to say that during the main deck. You might have noticed that I also have Proxy to Lure. So those of you that are new to my channel, just really quick, I do proxy cards in my deck profiles, but they are never cards that I do not already own. The reason that I proxy cards is just so I can have decks ready to play anytime I want to with friends without having to move around cards all the time or take them out, deceive them, re-sleeve them. I think I said deceive, de-sleeve and re-sleeve them. This just helps more conveniently have decks ready to play when I'm playing with those around me. So that's why I have proxies. It also definitely helps with deck profiles. I don't have to move cards around as much. But just know that I never proxy a card that I do not already own, and I never proxy more copies of that card than I already own. Just thought I would say that really quick to those that are new to my channel. That way you don't think I'm cheating at this game and not really investing in the game. I own every single one of these cards that I'm telling you to play. Let's continue. Then we've got Ignister here. This is good for going second and you want to just pop. I guess it doesn't pop, but I say pop kind of generically. It's a nice non-targeting removal. It just shuffles a card on the field back into the deck, which is really useful to do. And making level 8 synchros is not very hard with our level 2 tuner. Then we've got Borreload Savage. This could easily be substituted for the Tenyi synchro. It's just as effective. Just really another interruption is all that I'm going for with Borreload Savage. And since I have it, I make it because it's very easy for me to utilize. Next, we've got Odd Eyes Meteor Burst. I don't use this as often as I thought I would, but it's there on those niche plays where you do want to bring up another level 7 out of your Pendulum Zone, maybe to make Odd Eyes Absolute, then link it off and so on. But you don't really find yourself doing that anymore, and you make level 7s a lot less frequently now that Destrudo is gone. It's just there if the opportunity arises and is necessary. That's why it's only at 1. Next, I've got 2 Odd Eyes Vortex as kind of our main boss monster. It's a really great card. It allows you to bounce a card once it's summoned, as long as it... oh no, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't say fusion. It says special. So yeah, it gets to bounce a card when it's summoned, and then it's also that Omni Negate, and it helps you shuffle back to keep advantage, which allows you to once again play the long game, which is really nice. Next, we've got Perform a Pal Gatling Ghoul. This just allows to push for further damage for those OTK plays, especially in time, and when your opponent's kind of exhausting their resources, you're kind of tooth and tooth at this point. This allows you to get that final push and win. And finally, these last 2 are what I want to talk to you about as far as budget options, because I'm playing the budget options. A lot of people right now would play, rather than Wee Witch, they would play Masquerana, and rather than Avermax, they would be playing Appaloosa. If you have those 2, I would highly recommend playing them over these 2. But if you're like me and you don't want to spend that kind of money right now, these are very effective. It's just a generic link too. You always have dark monsters. So Wee Witch helps, especially with damage, putting that damage up. And then Avermax is a nice card that's also really tough to get rid of, just like Appaloosa. And it also allows you to push for further damage. So, and if they get rid of it, you get another interruption. So in my opinion, just as effective as Appaloosa. And in my opinion, this is just as effective as Masquerana, but I know that they just have that competitive edge and do things that no other cards can copy. So if you're able to afford those cards, throw them in and see the deck thrive even more than it is with this build here. So yeah, that's it, guys. Some other cards that I was kind of playing around with were like Secret Village. I think I threw in Odd Eyes Fusion just as a precaution, but it was never necessary. So if you want to play around with those, go for it. But yeah, that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed it. Give the video a like, subscribe. If you're going to buy any cards for the deck profile, be sure to use my TCG affiliate link. Just helps support the channel a little bit at no extra cost to you. And if you're interested in buying so many playmats that I no longer have to work a real job, go ahead and check out the link in my description below, and you can find playmats like this one here and some other new artworks on there as well. There's a new one that I just put out that's themed based on Gaia the Fierce Knight, so go check it out. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See ya.